Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium, and welcome to my channel. So happy you can join me today. And today we have got a pocket gatefold, or at least that's what I'm calling it. This is version 1. I'll have a second version that will quickly follow, so you won't have to wait another week or so for another video. But I wanted to get this one out. Of course, I am using something that's very new for our store, and it's called it's called Little Things by Graphic 45, and it is the sweetest, most magical collection that I think I have in store currently. So anyways, super happy to use this. I was really excited to use it, and voila. So I have today, like I said, the pocket gatefold. And the reason why I've called it a pocket gatefold is it's a gatefold, obviously, but I have done these two little triangles on the front that make it a pocket. So you have this amazing little panel that slides in there to keep everything nice and closed. You can use the back for a sentiment. Of course, there's lots of space on there if you want to have tons of signatures. And then as you open it, there is another set of triangles on the inside to hold all of your little messages. I've just put cut aparts in there. And I'll tell you why I came up with this card is, you know, with the pandemic and everything, we're still working remotely, and I know there are a lot of people out there that are working remotely as well. And birthdays used to be a big thing in the office, so we're trying to figure out ways to, you know, come up with a solution on, you know, things we could possibly do to celebrate birthdays when we're in a remote environment. So this was something that I came up with, kind of a spur of the moment type thing. And what I did was I used the Circus, the Come One Come All collection. And no, did I use that one? No, I used the Let It Be. Let It Be collection with all of its cute little tags. I had everybody in my team send me an email with their birthday wishes, and I printed those out. I've stuck them on the back of a cut apart. Those went all into the pocket, and the recipient was sent the card. And it was just kind of a way that we could all kind of celebrate. So this is my tutorial for today. If the words are going to come, I'm not entirely sure. So we will go through all of the measurements as per usual. They will also be listed in the description box below. So if you don't feel like taking out your pen and paper right now, fear not. You can always watch the video a couple more times if you want to, or you can just look at the description box below. So anyways, we're going to start off with the base. I just used this cream ivory, not sure what the color exactly was called, but anyways, we're using some cream cardstock. It's just 65 pound. And to begin with, we have two pieces cut at 11 inches by 6 inches. And then we have one piece that is cut 4 7/8 by 5.5. So that'll be our little insert. And then we have two of these pieces that are cut 2 3/4 by 6. So these we're going to cut together because we've got to do the diagonal cuts for these. And we're going to score. So I know I've kind of been changing things up here, there, and everywhere, and I feel like I want to get this done first. So we're going to do the base, and then we will get on to the designer paper. So with the base, I used my score pal, but not in the way that I normally do, which would be to score the paper. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pieces, 11 inches across the top, and I'm just going to simply fold it with that edge right up against that left side. I'm just going to press out, grab your bone folder or the whatever doohickey you have handy. So now we're going to rotate it 180 degrees. So now with the folded side on the left side, I'm going to take this top panel, fold it over, and do the exact same thing. So making sure everything is aligned, top and bottom. We're going to fold, we're going to burnish that really well so we have a nice solid crease, and that is what you end up with. So I'm going to duplicate that exact same thing with our second piece. So this is not a very difficult, card to make. You don't really need any special tools proving it here. And in fact, I think I like this way better for making my gatefolds. And I'll tell you why, is sometimes the scoring is not always exact. And the scoring, even when you score something, you've got a divot. And so the paper sizes shifts just a little bit, even if it's a fraction. So your gatefold, you know, for the most part, will usually have a little bit of a gap. So if I go back to my original, you can see there is a tiny bit of a gap. You can see the paper behind it is kind of coming through, but it really isn't a lot. And by putting this on the inside, it really is not even noticeable. I doubt very much that anybody will notice that. So here we go with our base. Sorry, the word was not coming to me. I don't know why. So I'm just going to take my glue. I've got some Barely Art glue here. I'm going to go around the perimeter. Doesn't have to be right on the edge, because then you're going to get a lot of seepage, and we don't want that. So I am just doing my best to keep this as close as I possibly can. And I apologize if you happen to hear the puppy dogs in the background. Our newest, our youngest is, you know, feisty as always. She's got a full belly, so she's full of energy. And that's how that goes. So I'm going to tuck in, making sure that I've got this panel on the opposite side. I'm just going to tuck that edge right into the fold, making sure that I'm not like over the edge at all, and that's going to fold without any problem. And then I'm just going to lay that down. I have glue, so I have a bit of time if I didn't happen to align stuff properly. But I gotta say that using this method, using the Score Pal to help you get things aligned on the left-hand side, really does. It's doing it for me. It totally is doing it for me. So my card making is pretty much on point right now. Anyways, thanks to my handy dandy Score Pal. Okay, so next thing is we are going to have to cut our panels diagonally. So that way we have our two pockets, our two sets of pockets, I should say. So the easiest way, if you happen to have a paper trimmer, if you have a guillotine, you can do the same way as well. I find I've been cutting these while I was kind of doing my trial and error, cutting them on my guillotine without any problem whatsoever. But I know that these paper trimmers are pretty common, so that's why I'm going to show you here. So I'm going to align, now for the base ones, so the base cardstock, it doesn't really matter if you go top left to bottom right or top right to bottom left. It is not going to matter one iota. Where that comes into, where that matters is when we're talking about our pattern paper, and we will get there very shortly. So what I'm doing here is I'm lining up my top left corner with my bottom right hand corner, and there is a wire that goes down the middle of the flip arm thing. And that basically shows you where your blade is going to be cutting. So I've got everything aligned nicely. I'm just going to raise the arm a little bit and bring down my blade so that way I can sink it in the middle of the cardstock, cut down, and then cut up. And this way your points are left very, they're very pointy. You haven't crushed them. And what I say by crushed is if you actually align your paper, I'm just going to set those aside. We've got to do this one anyways. So if I were to align my paper this way, right, and then cut coming down, the force of the blade hitting your cardstock, it's hitting it basically at its weakest point, which is the tip of the, or your corner. So that's going to kind of crumple your cardstock and as well as your corners, and you don't really want that. So we're just going to do the same thing, sink our blade in the middle, go up, down, and there we have it. So because these are solid cardstock, we can flip them any old way. It really isn't going to matter. So that's why I said it doesn't really matter how you cut these, but where it is going to matter is when it comes to putting down our pattern paper. It also is going to depend on what pattern paper you decide to go with. So, things to keep in mind when you're choosing a pattern paper for this project. So, the next thing, what are we going to do next? I think I'm going to put I'm going to put down 2 of these triangles. We're going to do the outside first. We're going to leave the inside. What I did was I laid down my designer paper first, and then I came in with my pockets. So it depends on how you want to do it, but that is what I would recommend, only because what ends up showing in terms of the designer paper for this one, if I remove these, I did not want to take the time to figure out all of the dimensions and the cutting for that. So this is actually a full piece of cardstock. Yes, some of it's hidden, but my mind is not a mathematical mind. It's a creative one, so there was no way that I was going to be able to figure that math out, and so that's what I've done for this, making it easy. Easy is the thing. So I'm going to use some of my 1/8 inch score tape for this. So I'm going to have, I need one panel like this. Okay, so we're going to lay some score tape on the bottom. You can absolutely use glue here if you wish. We do score tape on the bottom and on one of the sides, and it's the side that is the straight edge, not the side where we, not the diagonal side, not the side that we cut diagonally. So this piece is going to go like that. So I'm going to want to just spin that around for a minute. I really want to get as close to the edge as possible. And this way, I'm giving my cardstock, that panel that we're going to be making, I'm giving it as much space as possible. Whoops, kind of tore off some of the paper with that one. Okay, so we have our 2 pieces to go on either side. I'm going to put those down really quickly. So if you are using glue, and you totally can, you can use glue for this project and glue only. You don't necessarily need to have the double-sided tape, but yeah, for this project. So if you are using glue, I would recommend you use it sparingly. So if you're using something like the Barely Art Glue, then make sure you're using that fine tip, which is the same tip that I have here. Make sure you're using this and use it sparingly. You do not need a lot of it. It's magic. Magic. So right now, I'm just going to fold this out so this way I can have a good look at it. I'm going to line up my bottom, which I wasn't doing, but I definitely need to do. Because the top, if you end up with a little bit of excess, it's not the end of the world. You can just kind of snip it off. And for some reason, this, I'm wondering if I have kind of done this weird. 2 3/4, but it is, you know what? I think I might have cut this incorrectly. Well, it's a good thing I noticed before I started laying it down. Yeah, I, for some reason, have decided to cut these at not 2 3/4, not listening to my instructions at all. Okay, so give me just 1 minute. I gotta go in, cut some new pieces that are actually 2 3/4 by 6 and not 2 7/8 for some reason. That's where I went. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back now with the proper measurements. Don't even know, but this card has been challenging for me when it comes to getting this video done. So anyhow, dry fitting it first, which I normally do, but for some reason did not do it. So perfect alignment here and perfect alignment hopefully on this side. Yeah. So 2 3/4 by 6 cut on the diagonal, just making sure that that is exactly the information that I gave to you. It's what I have written in front of me, but for some reason decided that I was going to go totally off the reservation and I don't know, cut something that was about 1/8 of an inch, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in card making, that's quite a bit. That's a significant amount. Okay, so I'm going to go right to the tip, apply my, and then making sure that I've got everything figured out. And then I'm doing it on the right sides of using these triangles. That's the only thing I can say is check twice, check 3 times. What is it? What's the saying? Measure twice, cut once, right? So, yeah, apparently those are words to live by. In card making too. Okay, so now for realsies this time, we were actually going to put these pockets down. So, peel back the adhesive backing. Piece number 1. Piece number 2. Okay. And then I'm going to do as I was doing before I was so rudely interrupted by my lack of double checking measurements. Make sure that this is lined up at the bottom corner. And so we can, it's a little bit challenging to be placing this because, you know, the cardstock is all the same color, so my eyes tend to go a little wonky at points, but just take your time. If you're not, because this double-sided tape, it's great. Don't get me wrong, it's fantastic. Love it. Love the score tape. But it grabs, and it grabs forever. So thankfully I had not pressed down the wrong size. So I actually have a little bit of score tape hanging off the edge there. Just going to get rid of that. Make sure I'm lined up at the corner. Go across the bottom. And then we're lined up at the sides. Excellent. So now we've got our 2 pockets on the front. Like I said before, we're going to leave the middle or the inside for right now. We are going to jump ahead now. Designer paper time. Woo! Everybody's favorite time because of the beautiful paper. And so bring in all of the pieces. I have not cut my diagonal yet. Although I normally cut everything in advance, ink it all up, have it ready to go. I just figured today with the diagonal cuts, especially for the beautiful designer paper, I wanted to cut this with you so that you actually saw how that works, you know, the process. So we're going to start with the outside panel. So this is a panel that slides into your 2 outside pockets. So we are going to start, we have this beautiful Little Things paper. So I'm using both sides. So on this side, this piece is actually 4 3/4 by 5 3/8. The next layer, which is this beautiful mushroom paper, is going to be 4 3/8 by 5. And then for this one, I've chosen a smaller cut apart. So this top layer, so long as you can make it fit and you like it, that's all you need to worry about. You don't need to go with a cut apart. If there's a third design that you like, if you want to fussy cut one of the images out, by all means. There's a ton of little cut aparts and little strips and things like that within this collection that are just stunning. So you could absolutely make anything work, but I'm going with this little guy that just says Simple Things. And so for this one, I think he was like a 2. I cut him down. He's off the title page. It's 2 3/4 by 3 1/4. Yeah. And so I've inked him. So that's what we're going to do for the front little panel. We are going to need 4 of these pieces that are 2 1/2 by 5 3/4. And these are the, what we're going to cut on the diagonal. So these are going to turn out to be our layers for that. So we need 4 of those. We have 2 pieces that will be cut at 2 5/8 by 5 7/8. And these go on this panel right here. So that's the only full panel that we have. So that's why those are not going to be cut. And then for the very inside, we have 1 piece, and that is cut at 5 3/8 by 5 7/8. So we're going to start right now by laying this piece down, simply because I want to also lay down the rest of my triangles for that I'm using as my base for the pocket. So this is just going to go in here really nicely. Like I said before, I've inked all my edges. It's completely up to you if you want to do that. I just think it adds a little bit more definition to the designer paper. And where it ends, it gives a little bit of antique-y kind of feel. I'm using Vintage Photo, and if you've watched any of my videos, you know that that is my go-to. So I'm just lifting this up a little bit so I can kind of get a better idea, a better sense of where the end is. And the same thing with the other side, because my word, it is challenging. Because, you know, the paper just looks all the same. It's hard to see where the score marks are. So that's where that's going to go. So we have our nice little pocket here. We are going to apply our pockets on the inside, and those are going to be done the exact same way. So one is going to go over there, the other over to this side. You may have some overlap in the middle. That's not an issue. And so I'm just going to apply the same, I'm using basically the same process. So we're applying our score tape to the very bottom and to the flat side, not the side that we cut for that diagonal cut. It's just going to be this other edge. Okay, so that piece is going to go there. Sometimes it helps to lay the stuff out as you're doing it, and that way there is no you know, no worry that you're going to put it on the wrong side, whether it's the glue or your score tape. The other thing you may want to do is as you're cutting, once you kind of have things laid out, this is not a card I feel like to be rushed, because of these diagonal cuts can get a little tricky, but you can also mark the back sides. I've done that before when I'm album making, just to keep myself going along without any worry that I'm going to apply the wrong thing. It still happens from time to time, of course. We're all human. Mistakes do occur. We're not striving here for perfection. And so to apply this, I don't want it to impede my the folding of the gatefold. So do make sure that you are leaving some room. And I feel like applying it to the bottom is not a problem. Where I'm aiming to apply it to is just so that this pattern paper is just barely covered. And that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm going to take my time here. Make sure that I'm aligned at the bottom. And then as I'm going up here, whoops, get that applied as well. So now we have our cute little pocket. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alrighty. So again, just going to flip it around so I have a better, you know, look-see. Have that at the bottom. Make sure that I'm, you know, on the paper, on the designer paper, and get that applied. All right, so now it's designer paper time. So sometimes I like to do the easy stuff first. I'm not gonna lie, doing the easy stuff first here. So making sure that I have this in the right direction, which I do. If there's words or anything, you want to make sure that they're going in the right direction. This paper does have words in the background, but they're actually going in all the directions. If you noticed on this one, there are a lot of words that go, you know, left to right, but there are some that go up and down. So that does kind of, you know, mess with my mind a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so these two panels go down first. They don't have to. I'm just putting them down first. And then we will get to our diagonal cutting and all that fancy stuff. Okay, perfect. I love this one with the little clovers. And the clovers are kind of all over the place too. So, you know, put it down however you see fit is basically what I'm going to say about that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our diagonal cuts. So we have diagonal, diagonal, diagonal. So we've got 3 sets. We needed 4 of these puppies because they're directional on both sides, really. I couldn't very well apply it like this. So there is some directionality, if that's even a word, to this paper. So just be careful, be mindful of that when you're choosing your paper. The reason why I went with this beautiful polka dot and the floral is because both of them were really not directional. So that made my life super, super easy. Just keep that in mind when you're choosing your cardstock is all I have to say. The other thing we're going to want to do is make sure that we're mindful of how we're cutting it. And I'll show you. So we're going to do the exact same thing as what we did before. So what I'm going to start with is I'm going to start with our left panel. So the first piece that I need is I want to cover this piece, right? Which is obviously going to be cut from top left to bottom right. So I take my piece, I'm going to measure, I'm going to align my points top left to bottom right. Just make sure with the wire that I'm all aligned properly. Slide that down, sink the blade, and get to cutting. So that's perfect. Love that. That's going to live right here in all of its glory. But I want one to go on this side. I can't obviously spin it around this way. And if I flip it over, I have another design. But that's okay, because for the front, I also want to put a piece right here. So that works. See where I'm going? Now, to make sure, normally I don't do cut and apply, cut and apply. Ooh, I apologize. I also realized I did not tell you what the measurement of this piece is. So the 4 pieces you need, or maybe I did, I apologize, are going to be 2.5 by 5 3/4. So, as I move this, 2.5 widthwise by 5 3/4 lengthwise. Okay, I apologize if I did not say that. But I also want to get my pieces, since I have done inked edges on all of the other pieces, I definitely want to make sure that I just come in quickly. It's not going to take very much time at all. Gets rid of that white core. See, the white core's disappeared. And then I can apply my paper. So I'm just going to do that with some glue. No need to reach for the double-sided at this point. The double-sided really, I mean, the score tape, double-sided tape, whatever you want to call it, is great because you don't have to wait and hold it and wait for it to dry and all the rest of that stuff. Okay, perfect. So we have our first panel down, and then the other part to that panel is going to go all the way up here. We're going to come in and ink our edges. I really love this paper. We have some more paper coming in, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And I'm super excited for that because it's mermaids. Make a Splash is new from Graphic 45. Nice to get the names right. So I'm just going to flip this around and do my best because it is hard. Make sure you've got good light to look at your beautiful paper, so you're not having to struggle too much. Okay. All right. So we have opposites done. And so now we're going to do the reverse of that, right? So I need a piece of the lovely mushroom paper, and this piece is cut from top right to bottom left. So that's how I'm going to cut this next piece. That's why I say take your time, slow and steady wins this race 100%. So I'm going to go top right to bottom left, just making sure I've got everything aligned before I bring in my blade. Sink it and cut it. So for this one, we're going to have the exact opposite, meaning I've got my piece that is going to go here, nice and fine, and then I flip this piece over and I'm going to have a piece up there. And as it turns out, they're not quite aligned, but in the sense that it matches up there. So before I apply it, this is why I've left my inker or my sponge and my ink on my table. It's usually close by, But if it's not an eyesight, it gets forgotten. So I'm going to add some glue. Add my glue. And put my paper down carefully, but you know, it is glue, a little bit more forgiving than the, whoopsie daisy. See how quickly that sometimes gets missed? I feel like sometimes I need to have like a neon sign in front of me. Ink your edges, ink your edges. You know, sometimes. Okay, so this piece is going right there, so I'm putting my glue on the back. Haven't quite dry fitted these, but you know, devise a process that you are, you know, if you're trying to adhere to it. You know, if it works for you, whatever your process is, just stick to it. Okay, perfect. Oh, I realized I had some glue sticking out there. Okay, beautiful. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So I wanted to show you some of the different paper that's part of this collection. And I'll run through it. Maybe at the end of this video, I'll show you the rest of the paper. So now we have our inside. And you may be wondering, like, well, why do we need to have 2 more papers if we're just going to cut it in diagonal? Well, because if I cut this from top left to bottom right, I'm going to have this piece, which when I flip it over is going to not be right side up. So that's why we needed that second piece. So for this one, again, we're going to go top left to bottom right. Make sure that's all aligned properly, which I'm pretty sure it is. Sink the blade cut. So this piece, not waste. If you wanted to make 2 cards, I think you should have enough to make everything. If you made like double the card, then hopefully I'm not mistaken. Oh, you know what? I was actually going to do this. So not all is lost, because I can just flip that piece over. I can't flip this one over because you see the thick end is at the side, so it doesn't work on this side. This side would, but it would also be upside down. So that's fine. Not, like I said, not all is lost. I wanted to use that. I realized, I'm like, I don't know why I was thinking mushroom paper. I think the mushroom paper is totally cute. I love it. Don't know why I've got this thing with mushrooms. I love mushrooms. I will always eat mushrooms. I mean, the safe ones anyways. Not those funky, funky ones. All right. And then I apply this for some contrast, because that was why I was going with that. I'm remembering now, because I wanted to do, this one has a real focus kind of, I feel like, on the green. Then I did orange, green, orange, green, orange, green, orange, green. So you see, there was always a method behind the madness. I promise you. I promise you that. So now I need one more piece that is here. So this one cut from upper right to bottom left. And this one is upper left to bottom right. So make sure I've got my orange side on the top this time, facing up. And line that up. Should be good. I always like to double check, because sometimes, just sometimes, it's not. Sink it, cut it, save some of that paper. So, like I said, this paper is not going to be tossed. It's going to go in the save pile for sure. And then I'm going to ink this and apply to the inside. While I'm doing this, I do have to say that I am so thrilled to be at 900 subscribers. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And, you know, if ever there's anything that you need to ask, go ahead and plop that in the comments section. I get notified when there's comments so that I can reply to you lickety split. And I love seeing comments. Yeah, they totally make my day. Okay, and now the last thing we have is to make our panel. Right, and these are already inked, yes, which makes sense because I was able to cut these in advance. So I'm going to start with my largest one and place that over here like so, leaving a little tiny border. And then as we go down, I'm going to even leave a bit larger of a border. And then for this guy, now I want to see how this fits in, because I had thought for my little cut apart, so this fits in nicely. Oh, I love it. I love, 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 love these little mushrooms. Love them. You could always, I thought about maybe popping him up on some foam tape and perhaps intentionally sticking out these little bits at the bottom. Why not? Why not? We'll try that. I didn't obviously do that for this one, so it is supposed to fit in all nice and neat like. The only thing that I would say is make sure, like I have to glue that down a little bit more. So this was one of the strips that was in one of the cut apart pages, and because I didn't glue it down well enough, it gets caught all the time on that one pocket. So that's just something I would be careful about. Everything else is fine and it slides in quite nicely, but I just have to make sure that I lift up the pocket a little bit on those sides to make sure that I'm not catching it. And that's how that looks. You can always decorate these fussy cut stuff. There is a ton of beautiful imagery in this collection. It's absolutely stunning. So just something that you may want to, you know, yeah, you know what? Why not? So let me grab some of my tape. Now, the one thing I do want to make sure that I note is I obviously can't put tape on the edges. Probably going to go something like a V. I think that would make probably the most sense. Making sure that I make a note to myself in my brain where the bottom is, because otherwise I'm going to end up with something that is not going to work. So we don't want that. We do not want that. There's enough struggle in life. So, okay, so that can go like so, and that will slide nicely over everything. Yeah, I really like that. Love it. I'm going to put a little bit of this foam tape right here. Okay, so that's what that looks like. I'm going to need my handy dandy picking tool because this tape is another one that is super sticky, even to the backing. So makes, you know, taking it off. A little bit challenging, but that's okay. There you go. Perfect. So take this. If you wanted to, it's going to be supported, so it's not going to be so bad. I'm going to put this on while it's in, so that way I'm able to kind of there we go. And there we have it. So we have our little panel that fits in so nice to our first pockets, and then we have our second pockets that are waiting for our little tags. You can stick a gift card or two in there. You can stick money in there. You know, it's great. It's great for any occasion that you feel like you need to, or that you want to include something, you know, little gifty. So long as it's enough to, it's not big enough to, so long as it's small enough to fit in the pockets is what I'm trying to say. So that is our tutorial for today. Like I said, I have a second version that will quickly follow. I just wanted to get this out to you as quickly as I possibly could. Thank you so much for all the love and support. I really appreciate it. Thank you again for visiting me and stopping by and watching my tutorial today. I really appreciate that as well. Hopefully you have a fabulous rest of your day and you stay safe and well. Thanks. See you next time. Bye.